It says in the Mishnah in Masachet Tanit, Mishenichnas Ab Memaitin Simcha, that from Chodesh Ab, from the month of Ab, a Yehudi, a Jew, is supposed to decrease his Simcha, less Simcha, should have less happiness. Now, Chachamim, our sages, speak about this, that what does this include? This includes buying new clothing, buying shoes, buying houseware, anything that could potentially increase one's simcha should be avoided. And the reason behind that is because, as we know, Tisha B'Av is on the month of Av. The 9th of Av is when the Beit HaMikdash, Rishon and Sheni, the first temple and the second temple, unfortunately, Ba'avonetenu Arabim, were destroyed, and so many other tragedies that happened on Tisha B'Av. So in order to recognize and to realize what we're missing and to focus on that sorrow, our Chachamim instituted that certain things need to be avoided, including buying new clothing, including new shoes, houseware, right? And so many things that one needs to avoid. Now, getting into this halacha is really, this would come to prohibit buying even gifts for others. Even if you buy clothing, not for yourself, for others to gift it to them. Even the underwear that is brand new and you getting it because this is all makes you happy. Even if you're getting clothing, right, shoes, these things that you are not planning to wear it right then, right, you're planning to wear it after Tisha B'Av, right, one should not buy it because the fact that you acquired it makes you happier, right? Now, if one doesn't have a particular clothing, let's say he doesn't have a suit for Shabbat, right? Or he doesn't have shoes to wear, then obviously our sages allow him to go ahead and buy, even though that he's going to be happy. Now, it is obviously suggested that this individual should start wearing it on Shabbat. That because on Shabbat, one is having the simcha of Shabbat, right? He should initiate wearing that clothing or shoe on Shabbat. That because the Shabbat is the happier day, right? And then he should go from Shabbat to the weekday using it. That is not so much new anymore. Shabbat to the weekday. Now, what about tailors, right? Tailoring jobs. Is one allowed to go and have his clothing tailored? Now it depends. If he doesn't have any clothing, he is allowed to, right? If he has clothing, right, then he should not go to. Now, this also comes to remind those tailors not to start new clothings from Rosh Chodesh Av until after 10th of Av, right? Why? Because again, that adds to the simcha. However, tailors could start making suits, could start doing other clothing, right? Before Rosh Chodesh Av and then continue on it. Since they started it, they're continuing on it. So the real source of simcha, the real source of happiness already started before Rosh Chodesh Av, right? Now, this would not include little patches here and there. That's not really simcha. Right? Tailors could do the patches, right? Could fix here and there a little bit, right? So, when it comes to new clothing that this individual is wearing for Shabbat, right? And there is Shechianu. If the new clothing requires the Birkat of Shechianu, then he should say the Beracha of Shechianu on Shabbat on that clothing, right? And that's provided if he doesn't have any clothing. Now, another scenario that halacha, the Jewish law would allow a person to buy new clothing is when there is a sale going on. Right? Or there is a clothing that comes and it's very rare clothing. If you don't grab it now, if you don't buy it now, if you don't acquire, then later on there won't be anymore. So obviously in such a case, one is allowed to go ahead and buy it. Now the sale has to be a significant sale. It cannot be a sale that is like $1 or $2 here and there. It has to be something that is substantial, that really would make a difference. In such a case, then halacha would allow a person to go ahead and buy that clothing, that houseware, that shoes, right? There's a sale going on. He can do it. That's not a problem. Now the bride, the clothing of the bride, right, is something that is allowed to be made even after Rosh Chodesh Av. Now the reason behind that is, even though that this is going to make happiness, but since after Tisha B'Av there won't be time for the tailors, they're gonna be all busy making clothing. We're talking about Jewish tailors. Then a Yehudi is allowed, right? The bride is allowed to go see the tailor, start the process of making clothing for marriage, because otherwise this is going to affect the date of marriage. If there is no clothing, then on the wedding, right, it could possibly postpone the wedding. So our Chachamim teach us that in order not to postpone, not to delay the wedding, one is allowed to go ahead and seek a tailor to make a wedding clothing for the bride, for the groom, that this way the happiness of a marriage would not be delayed. The marriage would not be delayed. Now another case that a person is allowed to continue making clothing after Rosh Chodesh Av, right? It's for organizations that they're making clothing for people in need of clothing. Right? So people are in need of clothing, they don't have clothing. These organizations are allowed to go ahead and continue making clothing. And that's not a problem. Right? Because those people who get serviced by them, they don't have the clothing. Right? Another case that is mutar, right, is about it's about the person, as we mentioned before, he doesn't have any clothing to wear, he can go ahead and buy, right? Now, what about buying new shoes, right, during this time? Now, as we mentioned, new shoes also add simcha. However, by shoes is the real good leather shoes, not plastic, not fabric shoes, not wooden shoes, right? And in such a case, if he is not buying leather shoes, he's buying plastic, right, for the sake of Tisha B'Av, then he is allowed to buy it, right? He doesn't have shoes to wear for Tisha B'Av. That one is to refrain from wearing leather shoes on Tisha B'Av. Then he is allowed to go buy plastic shoes for Tisha B'Av, and this is not a problem. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings us Mashiach Tzidkenu b'mehera b'yameinu, and brings us the final Beit HaMikdash, Be'ezrat Hashem, Amen, and that we should have these days turned to Yemei Simcha and happiness, and we should not teach each other these halachot, right, of these hard and difficult times. When Omar Amen. Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen v'Amen.